This podcast is brought to you by New Life Ministries.
Welcome to the Every Man's Battle podcast. I'm your host, JJ West. On this podcast, you will hear honest conversation and encouragement for living a life of sexual integrity. Let's get to today's episode. Hey, welcome back to the Every Man's Battle podcast. I am your host, JJ West. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I work with individuals and couples dealing with sexual integrity issues. I get to also serve as the presenter for the Every Man's Battle Intensive. And I'm thrilled that you're listening. And I'm in studio with Doug Barnes.
Hi, JJ. How you doing?
Hey, Doug. I'm well.
Good. A little bit about me. I am a licensed professional counselor. I have been in practice for a long time. I've worked with the Every Man's Battle Intensive for a double-digit years now. It's been a long time. I get the honor and privilege of working in the breakouts, in the small groups. You'll hear this a lot. That's where a lot of the magic happens, and not anything about me, but it's because I like to be in the trenches with the guys, because that's where God really rescued me. And so it's just a real honor and privilege to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so glad that you are here. And as you may have already noticed, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that we are joined once again by Dr. Sam Fraser. We're so glad that Sam's with us because we're going to continue our discussion on long-term recovery. And, you know, we were able to tackle a lot of the issues, but we want to go deeper with some more questions, some more ideas about long-term recovery. But I want you to know who you're hearing from. Let me just give you a little brief intro to Dr. Sam Fraser, who's with us. Dr. Sam Fraser, pastor Dr. Sam, as his friends like to call him, former pastor for 6 years, but then also served for over 35 years as a Christian psychotherapist in the Los Angeles area in private practice. He's part owner and clinical director of a residential addiction program in Los Angeles. He was a ministry director for integrating spiritual formation with inner healing and discipleship for a parachurch organization for over 20 years. Integral in consulting with churches and Christian organizations for design and development of recovery ministries. Been integral in consulting with other organizations as well in developing their own recovery materials, does seminars, does workshops, does retreats, does just about everything you can think of. Is an adjunct professor. Mows your own lawn as well, right? Adjunct professor at a local seminary, teaching on sexual addiction to students who are training to become therapists down the road. And he's been a part of the Every Man's Battle program since its inception back in '99. So, guys, he knows his stuff. He's been through the trenches, as Doug talked about, for a long time, and we're honored, Dr. Sam, that you've joined us. We're so glad that you're here to share from those many years of experience, both from a clinical perspective, but as we all share, from a personal experience as well.
Yes.
So hopefully you now know a little bit more about who you're hearing from. But last time we met, we started talking about long-term recovery, and we started talking about what's the difference between the work that's done in long-term recovery versus when you first start out. I want to maybe take a slightly different direction with that to say, so what are some common mistakes that people make in long-term recovery? What does that look like different from, say, someone first starting out?
How much time do we have?
We're going to try and limit it to about 20 to 30 minutes here.
All right. So when you think about it, starting with, it's like I find that in my own personal life and working with other clients is this idea of they start taking it for granted after a certain point. I got this, right? It's like I know to do. I don't need to go to all the meetings every week. I don't need to do all the spending time in prayer. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. I don't need to check in with my wife every week. I start thinking that I know how to do it. What do you guys find?
Right.
Three words you always know you're talking to an addict. Right? I got this. I mean, you
this.
know, it doesn't matter. Out in the world, you hear that a lot. And so you know that there are some addictive things happening when you hear those words. So I get that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point you made, I think, in the first episode, we start to take our foot off the gas, right? Early on, boy, there's high incentive to do the work and do the work well and go to all the meetings and read all the books and listen to all the podcasts and attend the workshops, and I do all of that. But then when the intensity of that falls away, there doesn't feel like there's this someone saying, you better do that or else I'm out of here kind of thing. We can tend to take our foot off the gas.
And that kind of goes to the second part, is how do you keep the motivation?
Yes.
Right. And so like in my own story was, I first started doing recovery because of my wife. And I didn't feel the reason I took 30 years to do the first year is because I didn't believe in myself. I had a lot of shame. And I didn't think of it. I didn't have a motivation. And so when you think about, my first motivation was to save my marriage. That's maybe a good one to start with, but you really, you know, as you well know, and you may want to comment, it's like you got to do it for yourself. And until for such a long time, I didn't even care about myself, so I didn't have the motivation to go further.
Yeah, so a mistake would be that I think I'm just doing recovery for the partner, just doing a recovery for the parents, just doing a recovery for...
And that motivation just lasts as long as she's in my face, right?
Yeah.
And pretty soon she's not.
Yeah,
And pretty soon she's not.
Yeah.
Either because she leaves or because she's tired of trying to carry the load herself. She's waiting for you.
She's accepted that this is her life.
Yeah.
And this is the best
She's
it's going to
resigned
get.
herself.
She's resigned herself.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
When wives stop saying anything about recovery and they go silent,
Right.
that's a bad sign.
That doesn't mean she's in a good
Right.
place.
She doesn't mean she's satisfied. she's happy.
She's not hounding me anymore. No. She doesn't care anymore.
The
right?
buzzword is when she says she's fine, she's anything but.
Yeah. Okay, so what other mistakes do guys make in long-term recovery?
There are places and times when a motivation wanes. There are places and times where it gets mundane and gets boring. And so the idea is, how do we keep it fresh? And one of the things that I find when the mistakes that men do is they don't keep their spiritual life alive.
Okay.
So it's like as long as it's a red light, or what do you say, crisis.
Yeah.
We were motivated, but the idea once we step off the gas is the motivation. Do I have my own internal motivation to keep going or not? Do I feel like I'm worth it? Do I feel that, am I getting a sense of hope for myself that I'm worth it?
Yeah.
And I know that was when I struggled with for a long time. And I would do enough to keep my wife off my back and so satisfy her. And then I learned the language of recovery. That's another way you can fake it, is knowing how to say the right things and do the right things. And we have our own language, Christianese, right? We fellowship, we don't get together, we don't hang out. And when we're talking together, we don't talk, we share. And so there's a recovery language, and then the Christian church use a couple of verses at the right time and the right place, and you can get away with it.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. You can stay hidden.
But speak to the character piece of that what you talked about a minute ago, that internal motivation for change. Speak a little bit about that.
What you're talking about character, and that there's nothing character about it. Now, I have been a character. It took me a long time to gain character because it really is facing the things that I didn't want to face, doing the things I didn't want to do because my pride, my shame, I was humiliated, and so developing humility is a major part of what men need to do to really do serious recovery. And the spiritual life is actually the fast track to do it. And so what men, I think, fail to do is understand how the gift of addiction, and I put it in parentheses because when you think of a gift, it's like you think, oh, Christmas present? I think it's something good.
This is going to be great.
But the gift of the Spirit, it's like, well, it kind of is in reverse, because now when that happens with our addiction, boom, your character's now been exposed, and it's no character at all. And the idea is, the gift of it is you get caught. Because I think the research, and maybe you guys heard some of this too, where the research shows that most men get caught. 90% of the men get caught. They don't offer it. And so it's a kind of thing where having that kind of exposure and getting busted can be the worst thing that happens to you, but actually for me it became the best thing that happened to me, because I was able to fool myself and fool everybody else around me, because I wouldn't let anybody get very close. Somebody really didn't even know me, even my wife. So the idea of the gift of it is that what it did, it brought, because I've been a practicing Christian for over 20 years at that point. Well, yeah. And when you think about, but I didn't have a personal relationship with the Lord. And I didn't have a personal relationship with anybody else except me, myself, and I.
Right.
Yeah.
The unholy trinity.
The unholy trinity, yes.
Well, and I love
Capital
the
letters.
analogy of, you were talking about the car and the light on the dashboard as the initial motivation, right? Like, so we go to, something goes wrong with the car, we take it to the mechanic, we need to get this fixed, and we have that motivation of, I've got to get this fixed because I need it to get to work or whatever, and we pay the big money to get it fixed. But when we're talking about long-term recovery, we're talking about having the motivation to continue to change the oil, rotate the tires, wash and wax, right? And why do we do that? Because I want to maintain this thing, because I enjoy this.
There was an athlete. It reminds me of what you're saying. You say practice. Who wants to practice, right?
Right.
That aspect.
But if I cultivate my relationship with the Lord, and I'm cultivating a vulnerable relationship with my spouse, and I'm cultivating vulnerable relationships with other guys, I'm creating something that's actually precious to me. And so I do the work of, whenever you have a brand new car, man, you take super good care of that thing, right? You
For a
make
while.
sure for a
Right.
while
It gets babied, for
right,
sure.
it gets babied because you see it as something precious. And so to do good long-term recovery, we need to see it as precious, but the mistake is to take it for granted.
And to assume that my feelings will give the motivation, the juice to keep going, it doesn't work that way. At some point, you've got to do it out of hard work, and that's where you build the character.
And that's where we find the value in who we are, our true identity. We get out of our false selves, and we're walking in a true identity that speaks more to that spiritual relationship.
And so the addiction now starts to become the gift of, like, I'm really starting to be me. And how long have I not been
me?
myself?
Right.
For a long time. It started in childhood. It started before my first addiction was watching TV. I do it for hours and hours and hours on the weekdays, weeknights. And then I moved from a small town where we had one channel to Los Angeles where they had 13 channels. So it was just like, I was locked in.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that I was already losing myself.
Yes.
We don't know what we don't know,
Right.
like as kids.
Well, as kids, we're not supposed to know, but that's how we learn. But we're supposed to have parents who are giving us that, or the church gives us
Training,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Training ground.
Yeah, and so the idea of how it plays out, though, is you cannot do recovery without the character.
Right. Absolutely.
But you were talking about before about babying it. So how long does it go until it becomes just another thing? Right. So it's not new. It doesn't have that new car smell. Right. I mean, we love that.
Yeah, and it starts to fade, and then what? Now what do we use for motivation? It's no longer new. It's no novel. Right. And so the idea.
But do I want to maintain it? Do I want to keep it going? Right. Do I want to? I want my vehicle to last, and so I do the oil changes. So I do tire rotations, because to not do that,
you actually have to.
becomes much more expensive. Right.
Yes.
Well, you
The
quote
consequences.
unquote
The cost,
have to.
yeah, the cost is gonna come back
cost
again.
Is going
Right.
to come back again, and I don't want to go through that cost, and so I continue to do the work. No, it's not my fresh new car smell baby, but it's there's a cost to it that I don't want to pay, and there's a benefit to maintaining it because it works way better.
So
right?
When you think about addiction is easy. Anybody can do it. It's easy to do. The cost
I don't need
of
any training for
recovery-
that.
The cost of recovery is expensive. I mean, in the sense that you have to face things you don't want to face. You have to do things you don't want to do until you turn. It's like the pain becomes the gain. It's kind of like if you want to be buffed like Doug is and JJ, it's like you got to do the workouts, right? And if you do the workouts, the results happen, and then it's kind of an exercise that nobody really. Oh, I just can't wait to get done with my addiction so I can do recovery. Right. It's like, do you have a redemptive vision? Who are you going to become? Do you have a goal in mind? What I found was really helpful for me is as I started, when the person asked me, who do you want to become? And I went like, who do I want to become? And then I remember way back, I had a calling in my life, but I wasn't living my calling. And when I realized, man, that would give me a reason and a hope and a motivation.
Yeah.
Something to be passionate about.
Yeah, like that I had before I was perverted by my lust and my unfinished business of childhood and my feelings that I was ashamed of.
Right.
Yeah.
So it speaks to what kind of man is God really calling me to be.
Yeah. It reminded me of what I forgot.
Yeah.
What I didn't believe in anymore.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
'Cause we lose
this
ourselves.
is the biblical I would say this is the tangible or the practical expression of the biblical idea where God says, I will restore what the little foxes have destroyed.
Yeah,
right?
Song of Songs.
Yeah. So there
and then
is
what the locusts have eaten in Joel.
Yes, that's right. Like that's the enemy's plan, right? Is to steal,
and he
kill,
did
destroy.
really good job on me.
Right.
Yeah.
But God's plan is always for redemption and restoration of the things that he created us for, right?
So he takes our bad brokenness and redeems it into good brokenness. I make this joke about, you know what crap's good for?
Fertilizer.
And what does fertilizer do?
Makes things grow.
It makes things grow.
There we go.
So
Okay.
he takes our crap, if I can use that word, and turns it into fertilizer. And then the things that used to shame me, now I have compassion for because of the cross. And we may talk more about that in a minute. But the idea of when it gets transformed, then it becomes payback from now on. What the enemy had just designed to destroy us becomes the very place we can do payback from now on. Yeah. And we're all committed to what we're doing in recovery and helping other men go faster than we did.
Don't know the answer? New Life can help.
My 15-year-old niece is cutting.
I'm confused on what I should do.
I have an eating disorder.
I'm trying to find help.
I have a question about my 15-year-old stepson.
I need to learn how to connect with people.
Call us at 1-800-229-3000 Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, and our expert team of counselors and psychologists can answer your questions about your life. 1-800-229-3000.
When Every Man's Battle came out, the book came out in 1999, and I was actually we now have 25 years. In November, it'll be 26 total years. We're in our 25th plus. So we have had over like 300 Every Man's Battles all this time. That's a lot of Every Man's Battle. We started with a 5-day program, and then several years later went to a 3-day program and did some things to try to stay up with what would make the best ministry for the time in our culture. Everything going on. And certainly everybody who goes to Every Man's Battle feels like, man, you go in on Friday this way, you come out this way on Sunday, and you got a lot of motivation emotionally. And so the idea is coming back. It's like what I said last session, where we've got churches that do a weekend with men for their men's retreat. Every Man's Battle is a really good investment because it's very situation specific, very theme driven. Plus, once you've been there, you come back, you already have a sense of what's going on.
At E&B, we're all at the same place. At the intensive, we're all at the same place. And where do we find guys that are now where we are? Lots of times in churches,
they're volunteering.
Right. But a lot of times in churches, they're not at that same place. And so there's a disproportionism, if that's even a word, right, of recovery.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about doing a book
You could say the commitment level, wouldn't you?
Oh, that's a great way to say it. It's the commitment level of where I am per se versus where my Bible study group is in that same line of recovery. There's just a disproportionate look at that.
Because they haven't, the church at large has not had the same experiences that taught them about connection.
For the most part, right.
And so we can have wonderful Bible studies and learn about the Lord. We can have great potlucks where we fellowship and share, but the idea
But who knows you?
But who
right.
knows
who
me?
Who knows me?
Exactly.
And
right. Really
knows
knows me.
We have guys who've been together for years doing Bible studies in church and working together, volunteering. When you go to the church for a couple hours and you go drive back home is one thing. But when you drive here and then you stay for 3 days, that's like commitment.
Yes.
And it means something more. It means something more than it did when I first came, because now I'm starting to get a glimpse of how is my character changing, what kind of man am I becoming, and now I can do it in a more hands-on, if you will, arms locked, lockstep with guys that are doing the same thing.
And when you think about it, when the guys come, they're kind of don't know what they don't know, as you say, and so they get some tools. But I think when the second time they come, third time they come, you're getting 6 months of therapy in 2.5 days. And so the incredible amount of the work that's being done is, there's one thing to do once a week for month after month, and when you do it here from Friday, Saturday to Sunday, there's something that transforms that it can't happen any other way. In the kind of environment that we provide, and we feel that, and the guys feel that. That's why they come again and again.
Well, and we need to keep in mind too that sometimes the tool is not the tool.
Say more.
it's not something that I do to cross it off my list or to check it off like a box or to complete that project. It becomes a lifestyle change that now I can pass along through to our kids, that comes through to our spouses, if it's from a heartfelt place. If it's not a heartfelt place, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And one of the things, the character is about creating vulnerability, because like I used to hide it behind everything, and now I'm out in front and I'm being more myself. And there is something about the language of recovery. Our language changes.
Right. And it's not just the words.
Yeah.
It's not just the words, because they come from our heart. It's not just left brain stuff.
Well, and there's a synergy to being with other people who are trying to do the very thing that you're trying to do, right? If I'm trying a new exercise regimen on my own, I'm much more likely to have fits and starts and failures. If I have 5 or 6 or 20 other people that are also doing it with me, I have that much more motivation. I see their success, and I'm like, yes, I want that too. The same thing happens in recovery.
Yeah, the vulnerability is important. And then there's the afterglow. You know, when you come and go the first time, you come from off the mountaintop, and then eventually, kind of like when Moses went up the mountain, and, and then he put a tin over himself because hey, and then the glow went away, and he didn't take the tent off his face. But the afterglow is, I think, when you do it the second time, the third time, it's always better than the first time.
Yeah,
we get that constant feedback all the time. It's like, oh wow. You said it would be better the second time. It's like, I
wasn't sure, but now
the first time was pretty awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
But that goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning of this one, is that, hey, we didn't know that. We don't know what we don't know. And so when we come back, I hear something I didn't hear before. And then the next time I come back and I hear even more that I didn't know, that makes more sense to me. So it just keeps getting better. The gift that keeps on giving, right?
And it is the kind of thing where the shame factor becomes, when you think about the character, you can't build character and keep your shame at the same time.
Right.
And so the idea of, in your talking and the sharing and hearing that person's experience and that person's experience, it's like we're feeding our masculinity, we're feeding our character. It's kind of this like you said, synchronicity. How it creates that, you get double, triple. It's
Absolutely.
It's amazing how that experience, because you can't do that in individual work.
No, that's exactly right.
It actually it's like an insurance policy. It ensures that you're going to be able to use this and launch from it into the next stage of your own recovery, and you move from sobriety to recovery to a lifestyle. And the tools you get in recovery, you may not get in the church formally, but those tools that we give, man, those are things you can use the rest of your life, and not only in this world, but in the next.
Absolutely.
We take that in with us.
And that speaks to step 12, right? And now that I've learned what I've learned, experienced what I've experienced, now I'm taking that to others who might come to me, that God is already preparing, that we don't get. When we first come to EMB, we don't get that. We don't understand that God is already working on a ton of guys out there, aligning their paths so that at just the right time, our paths are going to cross. And that's when I can talk about, hey, this is my experience then, this has been my experience since then, and the difference it's made.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we want to walk this out. So if you haven't, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go on the website, newlife.com/EMB. Find out when the next workshop is going to be, where it's going to be. It's such a good opportunity, but you have to do some work. You have to make the call. You have to make the plans. You have to make some sacrifices. It's more than just going to your church Bible study, but it's also going to be so much more rewarding. So we're doing whatever we can to convince you that this is a good idea, because we know how important this is. We know how valuable this is. And as we've said many times on the podcast, we're just one beggar telling another beggar where we found bread. Like this, are you hungry? Are you hungry enough to make the call? So please do that. Sam, thank you for being here with us. We hope that you'll come back again.
Thanks, Sam.
It's been great. Hey, on our next episode, we are going to talk with a brother in the battle about his experience with Sustained Victory. And so hopefully you'll come back and listen to that one. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is just one of the many ways we can encourage and help you. If you're looking for more help, visit us at newlife.com or call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Please remember to review, like, and share the podcast, as it helps others find us. If you have a comment about this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at embpodcast@newlife.com. See you next week.